I'm Ninja Nick. I'm a Mordor faction player on server 50, and this is my first video for Lord of the Rings Rise to War. In this video, I just want to go over probably the most commonly asked question in the Discord server for the game, which is which evil commanders are good, which ones are bad, which ones should I invest in. I'm just going to go over them one by one very quickly, rapid fire. I found out very quickly that if I try to do like an in-depth review of all of them, the video drags on essentially forever. Just keep in mind these are my own personal opinions based on the experiences that the Mordor faction has had in our struggles against the other factions. I don't have every single commander unlocked. I don't have the money to burn for that. I do have a fair number of them though. Almost all of the tier 1, about half of the tier 2, and one of the tier 3. Just keep in mind, again, as we progress later into the game, into later seasons, the commanders that scale better will improve. So the ones that are strong early may fall off later and vice versa. So just going to go ahead and start. Gorbag is the one that everyone starts with. Gorbag is really good. He's definitely a commander that you should not be afraid to invest into. He's very versatile. He's got a heal, 2 sources of damage reduction for orcs, an orc damage buff, which is constant, and an active skill that further increases damage for orcs. Well, everybody actually. So he has a strong mix of both offense and defense. In the extreme late game where you have all of these skills that I was just talking about maxed out, you can get some crowd control here for a 30% chance of inflicting madness. This is a 1-point wonder. And after you have some points invested in this, you can go for Interrogator and Restrain for more crowd control and damage against crowd controlled enemies. So he is extremely versatile, extremely strong. Does specialize with orcs. Grey Leader and Orcish Warlord only work with orcs, but that shouldn't be a problem. The majority of the units, especially in the early game for Mordor, are orcs. The ones that are the best, or at least like not the worst, are almost all orcs. This is a very good commander that you should be using. I'm going to skip over to Kamul really quick, because Kamul is the commander that's available in the $2 pack. He's a very easy buy. And again, he's a character that you probably should be buying. Now, what makes Kamul strong is this second in command set down here. The title increases his own focus and increases the damage of allied melee units and gives him a focus buff. But the reason that you want him the most are the 2 skills after that. Anticipation, which at max rank gives a 75% chance to avoid damage from the next 4 attacks at the start of the battle. And Discipline, which at max rank gives 35 defense to the entire army. This will take squishy units and make them relatively bulky. This Anticipation skill is honestly ridiculous. Avoiding all damage from any number of attacks is extremely good. It's effectively a stun on whatever is attacking you, right? So having this early on in the fight, when like the proportions of units is the most important, makes him insanely strong. He has some other pretty good titles and skills. This Nazgul Screech has a stun, which is decent. He has a defense and a speed reduction up at respect level 5. And then there's a skill after that that gives immunity to madness, as well as a physical damage buff to mounted units. I don't think he's all that good at respect level 5. I don't think any of these skills are like crazy. They would be if the mounted units for the evil faction were better, but unfortunately they're not. The only 2 options that you have for mounted units are Dragoons, which are meant to be more like tanks versus ranged units than they are like offensive, and Raiders, which are supposed to be like a pseudo anti-cavalry, but the damage bonus is essentially negligible. So, like, the mounted units are not very good, not very well suited for Kamul's, like, run-and-gun playstyle. He's, like, get in, deal as much damage early as possible, take advantage of high unit counts, and get your enemy as low as possible before they can do anything. Okay. Let's move on to the next one. So far, Gorbag, definitely worth investing in. Kamul, good early, is probably going to fall off once other commanders get into respect level 3 and 5. Mostly because of second in command. All right. So we're going to fall back and do the rest of the tier 1 units now. A lot of the evil commanders are going to fall in the same category as Agzok. They are commanders that specialize in dealing damage themselves, individually, with their own attacks, their own abilities, and have very little support for the actual units in their army. And we're going to see that here. So, Pursuer gives a self-damage bonus. Deepen Wounds is a damaging skill that he uses. Overwhelm, damaging skill that he uses. Black Numenorian gives an additional damage to his normal attacks. Again, like, these are all just offensive skills that he uses. And in Dark Mantle's case, just like a flat physical damage buff. But it's the same all the way down. Like literally his whole tree is dedicated to Agzok dealing damage himself. He has essentially 0 buffs to any of the units in his army. And that to me makes him very unremarkable. I've seen screenshots of people dealing a lot of damage with Agzok, but to me the restriction of having to use like pure tank units with him and just rely on his own damage makes him mediocre. And again, he's not alone in this. There are a lot of commanders that are very similar. So very mediocre in my opinion. Next one down, Khaldun. Very, very similar to Agzok. So experienced warrior, hunt down, collaboration, all designed to increase the commander's damage, not the army. He does have Easterling, which has some sub-skills here on the side that reduce damage taken for specific army members or with a chance to reduce damage taken. But everything else is him dealing damage. He does get one notable skill at the end here, Respect Level 5, Tribal Tactics. I believe this ends up being a 25% chance, or 20% chance of evil men attacking twice. Really, really good. And then at the end, he does have some crowd control here as well. So early on, Khaldun going to be very mediocre. At Respect Level 3, it's very much more of the same. At Respect Level 5, he gets a title and 2 skills that are actually really good. So later on, or if you decide to throw your items at him, you can get a pretty solid commander. But if you only have him like Respect 1, Respect 2, Respect 3, don't bother. Next, we have Maltok. Same Pursuer Easterling combination that we saw before. Or rather, I think this was Agzok's and this was Khaldun's. So a little bit of a combination of the two here. Unfortunately, I think this is the worst of both of the skills from those commanders. He also gets Interrogator, which Gorbag had. Fun fact, Interrogator and Restrain, its secondary skill, have absolutely no synergy or interaction whatsoever. They occur on different rounds. So this damage bonus that Interrogator gives is never actually realized by Restrain. You have to have a second source of crowd control in order to use Interrogator's damage increase. And wouldn't you know it, Maltok does not have a second source of crowd control. Okay, his Respect Level 5 deals entirely with wargs. Why? I don't know. He is, like, I can't look at Maltok and think that he's anything except a worse version of Gorbag. Because units with wargs are also categorized as orcs in this game. If you look at the tags for the raiders, or, well, it's literally just the raiders. Where are we going here? The raiders, these are the only units that appear to be riding wargs, but they're also considered orcs, so they are affected by all of Gorbag's buffs. So, do not recommend using Maltok either. Jump over here to Sharku. Sharku is good for one reason and one reason only. He has a siege bonus. This is what you'll be using Sharku for. So this at max rank is Siege +7 for your army, which is really good. You can use this with Crushers or Brutes early on into the game, but if you're later on, you can use them with Alchemists. Their 30 Siege becomes 37. Please do not make the mistake of using Trolls with him. That will only change their Siege rating from, I believe it's pretty high. It's in the hundreds. Yeah, it's 450, but it'll change it from 450 to 457. So it doesn't scale anywhere near as well because orcs have a low unit count. Okay, Sharku's other abilities are all pretty eh. Arsonist causes him to deal burn damage. This deals some additional burn damage as an active skill. This causes enemies to receive more burn damage. But, like, none of his skills seem super impactful, right? Like, Conspirator isn't bad. This is 2 sources of potential crowd control. Treason is active for the first 4 rounds, scales up to like an 80% chance, I think it's 75 or 80, of succumbing to madness each round, which is honestly pretty good. Trickery, again, activates every 3 rounds and has a 50% chance of causing them to succumb to madness. Not bad, but this is definitely his best one because guess what? His Respect 5 is Warg Trainer again, and Wargs have absolutely no synergy with Siege or burn damage. So like these points are a waste. Arsonist is not very good because he doesn't deal very much damage himself. Again, he's a very low might character. He's got respectable focus, respectable speed, but like this is not really significant damage, and these numbers just are not very high. Like the scaling just is not here compared to other damaging abilities. So in general, Sharku, good for Siege, not really good for anything else. Grima. Grima is an interesting character because he's the only tier 1 that I haven't unlocked. And I very much regret that because Grima, I think, is actually very good as well. He has a title that inflicts madness on the enemy commander, which can be very good for good heroes like Durin and Legolas, who are very popular. Aragorn as well also has several active skills that deal damage that would be very nice to have reflected onto his own army. He has the same second in command that Kamul has, which instantly makes him very good. Defense bonus and the chance to avoid all damage for 4 attacks. He also has a better version of Interrogator. This is just a passive skill that causes enemies that are subject to madness to receive more damage. This is exactly what Interrogator should be. And then this is the reason why he's so good, especially early on. Every 3 rounds, inflicts madness to 2 enemies. This isn't a percent chance. This just, it inflicts it. And it has a defense penalty. Grima is crazy in the early game. He is so good in the early game. He might even be the best tier 1 commander. The best. His Respect level 3 title, nothing special. It's a small damage received bonus that takes effect after round 4, round 5. So not that great. Deafness, not that great. Prudence, fine, but the damage penalty kind of sucks. This scales up to a 50% chance of avoiding damage for the first 2 rounds. But there's some overlap here with Anticipation. Whether or not you like that is up to you. I think it's okay. I don't think it's amazing. Wizard's Assistance, pretty trash. Outflank, pretty trash. Lower defenses, pretty bad as well. So Grima is an excellent early game commander that probably falls off later. Have Yusra. Yusra is Agzok, basically. Lots of damage increases. She has a siege bonus, which will be, again, the reason why you use her. She gets Easterling at respect level 3 instead of respect level 5 or respect level 1, which just means that she's going to be less useful early on. And her rank 5, respect 5 of all things is Interrogator. And again, she has no other form of crowd control to actually use it. So respect level 5 is useless. Respect level 3 is mediocre. And a siege bonus at rank 1, respect 1, is really the only thing that makes her worth using. Her? Him? I guess I'm not sure. Ugthak. However you pronounce this. Very similar to, like, he's just another damage dealing commander, right? Pursuer, we've seen this one. It's a lot of active damage that affects him. Searing Axe, it's a unique ability for him, but it's all the same stuff. His attacks have a chance of dealing burn damage. He deals additional damage against melee units, and enemy units are dealt burn damage. At respect level 3, he gets some self buffs. Uruks have a small chance of recovering a small amount of HP. This is a terrible skill. And Dangerous Trade. This one can be fine. I imagine it affects him as well. At rank 7, this is a 28% damage increase, which is honestly pretty solid. But Warlord, respect level 5, is okay. Like, 14% damage dealt on a title is... I'm sorry, 30% damage dealt on a title is solid. It has no downside like Gorbag's does. So overall, I think his respect level 5 is fine. He gets Orcish Warlord at 5. He gets Battering Ram, which is a better siege bonus at 5. So I think this is a character that starts off looking very vanilla. Pursuer and Searing Axe are both very boring, very underwhelming skills. You can find them on a lot of other evil commanders, but Dangerous Trade makes him interesting, and then his respect level 5 makes him pretty good. So if you're going to use him, you're probably going to use these 4 abilities right here, with maybe some Pursuer points for a damage bonus. Already went over Gorbag, silly me. And then the last tier 1 is Shagrat, however you pronounce it. Shagrat is unique among the tier 1 characters. He has a lot of skills here that you don't have access to until tier 2 or tier 3. Captor is unique for him. It's a skill that activates every 3 rounds. It stuns an enemy, but reduces the amount of damage they take. And that stun can last for 2 rounds. This is a very, very good skill. This damage received penalty goes down as you put points into it. I think it becomes like a 20% damage penalty at max rank. It's very nice, very good. Open Wound. Removing other players' abilities to heal in PvP is really, really big. And even on like the 200 and 230 lands where you have the chance of running into Arwen, having this skill is very nice. It's just unfortunate that it only activates starting on round 4. Laceration, wouldn't use this. He has a decent stun in Topple up here, 50% chance of stunning for 1 round on a 2-round cooldown. And then a damage or defense penalty down here in Break Defenses, which is okay. Activates every other round. But then he gets the same Watchman of Cirith and Goal that Gorbag gets, which is really good. Madness, damage bonus for orcs, and the Enrage that gives all allied units a 60% damage buff at max rank. And then he has some defensive bonus in Cirith and Goal Garrison. This ranks up to, scales up to 18%, I believe. The same Uruk-hai captain that, what was it? Ugthak had, not very good. And rank 5, he has the discipline skill that Grima and Kamul get. So this is good. This is okay. Like, you shouldn't ever be playing on the defense in these games. So this is kind of whatever. His respect 3, really good. Captor, really good. Ability to negate healing, really good. So, really good CC character. At respect level 3, he gains some decent damage buffs. And at respect 5, he just becomes a better defensive character, which is kind of irrelevant. Let's move on to the tier 2 commanders. We already covered Kamul. The Shadow is an AoE attacker. At max rank, his attacks deal poison damage, which causes them to bypass defense, and they also inflict damage to all enemies. This is what you should be focusing on with him, if you're going to use him. Just take the passive skills that increase his own auto attack damage. So take Undertaker, don't take Plague or Delayed Plague, take Black Numenorian, don't take either one of these either, though Black Arts can be nice for the healing removal. And then Morgul Poison causes more damage. Nazgul Screech has the stun, which is pretty nice. Shape of the Void gives him a chance to attack twice, really, really nice. He also has a chance of gaining damage, and then causing the enemy army to take additional damage. So this is a character that starts off kind of okay. The ability to bypass defense cannot be understated in this game, especially since we are evil going against good. There are a ton of high defense, high physical damage reduction characters, or units rather, on the good faction. Tons of them. The ability to bypass it completely with poison damage is really, really valuable. So Undertaker, Black Numenorian, Shape of the Void, and its respective skills here would make you a very scary character indeed. With maybe 1 point into Nazgul Screech for some CC. Alerts. This is the commander that will be featured in the first set of special Matham chests. Unfortunately, Alerts is very mediocre. Doesn't really specialize in anything amazing. Pursuer, very common. You see that on a lot of the tier 1 commanders. Uruk-hai Elite, just a small stat bonus. Dangerous Trade, we saw that. Uruk-hai Captain, we saw that. Pretty bad. Respect level 3, he deals a small amount of damage 3 times. Something about damage scaling, I imagine this is a pretty terrible skill. Rush does literally nothing except deal physical damage. Same with Raid, just deals damage. This is a very mediocre skill. This whole Respect level 3 is very mediocre. The White Hand, this goes up to 4.5% damage every round at rank 15. Not bad, but in a game where the early rounds are the most important, not really anything meaningful. Untiring for some damage reduction, this is actually pretty good. Stun immunity is okay, but the good factions don't have a whole lot of stun in my experience. Arson, totally out of place, don't use it. So, very mediocre. He feels like a tier 1 character. He doesn't feel like a tier 2 character at all. Very disappointing. Ugluk, he is on the second set of featured chests, I believe. And Oluk, he's almost a carbon copy of Lertz. Genuinely. Pursuer, Uruk-hai Elite, the White Hand, Ugluk, Pursuer, Uruk-hai Elite, the White Hand. The only thing that makes these guys different is their tier 3. Ugluk gets Outlaw, which gives allied melee units a damage buff, but increases their damage received. At max rank, this is okay, but it doesn't scale as well as other damage increases, as in the value just isn't as high, and it has a downside for no apparent reason. Cripple, mediocre. Brawler, mediocre. He falls into the same pool as Lurtz. Unremarkable, could have been a tier 1 character. Krishnok specializes in poison damage. He does have the siege bonus. Again, this is the thing you will be using him for early on in the game, because his assassin skill is just nothing special. The title is so small. 30% poison damage for himself and himself only. Well, his normal attacks don't deal poison damage, they deal physical damage. So the only thing it's scaling is his skills. So it's scaling half of his abilities, right? Half of his overall damage. Corrupting Curse, always nice, 30% chance of inflicting madness. Plague, Heal removal, pretty solid. Survivor's not very good. Only activates on round 5. 30% damage reduction is pretty big, but again, like it's just too long. It's too delayed. Deafness, focus, and speed increase doesn't really fit him. The focus increase is okay, but I'm pretty sure his speed isn't that bad. I figured his speed would be worse. So it may be fine, but this isn't something you would want on a side skill, right? That's something you would want like on a title. Prudence, a chance to avoid damage, pretty solid. And then he gets Interrogator. The reason why Interrogator is usable on Grishnock is because he gets Corrupting Curse. I wish he got something else as well, but the combination of Restraint and Corrupting Curse is pretty good, just like it is with Gorbag. So I think Grishnock is okay. Early on, you'll use him for the siege bonus. Later in the game, you could partially spec into Prudence for some early avoidance. I wouldn't recommend using Assassin. I don't think it's worth it. Or like maxing Assassin, I don't think it's worth it. Probably do 1 point in Corrupting Curse. You could max out Interrogation, but after that you start to wonder, like, okay, like what else do I put points in? And nothing else really seems impactful enough to make a huge difference here. Mouth of Sauron. Mouth of Sauron is an anti-commander commander. So most of his titles have to do with negating other commanders or the enemy commander's effects and damage. This is a damage reduction for allies and enemies. It's purely meant to prolong fights. He has damage or defense reduction for enemies, as well as just a flat inflicts madness, just like Grima does. The skill is extremely good. I believe it's the same skill. Enfeeble. Enemies subject to madness receive more damage. Again, like this is what Grima has. This is super good. Both of these together, really, really good. Black Numenorian, I believe, causes, his attacks to deal more focus damage. Pretty out of place. Dark Mantle causes physical damage increase. Black Arts is more removal of HP. I believe he has another source of that, but I forget where. But Respect Level 3 and Respect Level 5 is where we start to get interesting, because Messenger at max rank will reduce normal attack damage by 90% for the entire fight. This is really good, not only against the PvP commanders, but also against the Heart of Fire bosses, the event. The Dragon and the Balrog are both considered commanders and do a shit ton of damage. And Messenger, along with Disruption, which is silence, and Shutdown, which reduces might and focus, will help a ton versus those guys. Lieutenant of Barad-dûr, nothing amazing, but he's one of the only commanders in the game that gives trolls any sort of bonus whatsoever. So having this 24% damage bonus for trolls is pretty nice, and this is like the only thing that trolls have going for them, so they've got to have something, I guess. And then just damage reduction for enemy units. Orcish Warlord, I don't really think has a place on this character. This is all about commander negation. Shut down the enemy commander, whether it's PvE or PvP, and then make them take tons more damage and attack each other with madness. So I think Mouth of Sauron is very good, in case that wasn't clear. Not so much at rank 5, but rank 3 is when he really pops off. Gothmog. Oh boy, Gothmog. Gothmog is amazing. Gothmog may just be the best commander, period, for the evil characters. There is not a single bad skill that Gothmog has. I don't remember there being one. Starts off with second in command, which is Kamul's and Grima's strong point, right? Avoidance, defense, super good. Overlord gives a damage buff for one of your units. So a defending bonus that I would ignore, and a physical damage reduction that I would probably also ignore. But Overlord itself is quite good. The Crippled. This is the big boy. All allied units at max rank, each attack has a 60% chance to cause maximum damage. Reduces his own normal attack damage. And it reduces the effects of debuffs on your units. This is insane. So, one of the things that makes the evil faction a little bit questionable in their quality is that so many of their units have such a high damage variance. So, pull them up here. The snipers, the Uruk Rangers, have a damage variance of 100% from 12 to 23. The Arbalests have a damage bonus of essentially 100%, 8 to 15, along with poison and additional chance to attack. But that's huge damage variance, right? Like half to full. But the biggest one, and the reason that you want to use him, is the Alchemist. 1 to 17 damage. 1. Okay, if you haven't realized this yet, the Alchemists are insanely good. And you might not realize it from looking at this screen. We need to go into my barracks to see the effective max rank here. So Alchemists at rank 10 of their passive skill. Normal attacks deal 300% burn damage. So this 17 becomes either, I'm not sure if it's 51 or 68 damage on a 100 unit per command unit. This is insane. Burn damage bypasses defense. We're talking obscene amounts of damage. This unit deals so much damage, but on a huge variance, 1 to 17, paired with Gothmog. Alchemists are absurd. They are squishy units, which are made tankier by anticipation and discipline. Their damage ability becomes a million times more consistent with the crippled. He has a damage buff for them in second in command itself. And then Overlord increases the damage that they deal. You can't get much better than this. He even has a heal removal, open wound, for 2 rounds. Resupply, I believe, is pretty terrible. I wouldn't bother using. And then he has the same ore control bonus that Mouth of Sauron had, except that it comes with Grond, whatever that is, which is a huge siege bonus. Like, holy shit. At max rank, I believe this provides a 21 or 28 bonus to siege. We're talking about doubling the Alchemist's siege value. I can't get over how good Gothmog is. He is so good. He is so good. Probably the best commander, at least out of the ones that I've talked about so far. Osrukor is like the opposite. He has Raider, which is very similar to what's his name? Very similar to Maltok? Where are you? No, very similar to Sharku with his Arsonist. It's almost exactly the same. It's just a bunch of burn damage. And I know I was just talking about burn damage with Alchemists, how good it is, blah, 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 but we're talking very small amounts of damage here, like 2.3% chance. I believe this scales up to 30% chance. Like, oh, what? You can't build an army around a 30% chance of dealing, what is this, like 40% burn damage? Like, it's terrible. It's terrible. Plus, you have to use ranged units. The evil side doesn't have, like, essentially any good ranged units. Burn damage, burn damage. Warship Captain is entirely utility-based. It's a heal with a debuff removal, but the heal is tiny. It's on a 3-round cooldown. It's pretty bad. Discipline, solid, but you have to invest in Warship Captain for it, so it kind of sucks. Clear-headed tip completion? Yeah, I don't know. Conspirator makes his burn damage slightly better, but not enough. Treason is probably the only good side of this character. First 4 rounds, 2 targets. This scales up to almost a 100%, essentially a 100% chance of succumbing to madness. Pretty good. And then Trickery, same thing. I believe another commander gets this set, though. And they're more accessible than him. I think it was on a tier 1 character. So, again, his respect level 5 causes enemies to deal minimum damage. Well, sorry, the good faction units have like no damage variance whatsoever, except for the Dwarven Axe Throwers. A siege bonus, like cool, if this was on Warship Captain, we could use it, but it's on a respect level 5 skill. No thank you. And then Evil Alliance for a small amount of damage reduction. Very mediocre character. There's essentially nothing noteworthy about him. If you're able to, do not take him. The thing about tier 4 characters is they start to share resources, right? So if we look at the medals for these characters, it can apply to 2. Gothmog, who is the best, also shares these Orc officer medals with Grishnok, who is okay but not great. Osrukor shares his items with Mouth of Sauron, who is really good for shutting down enemy commanders. Should you ever use these on Osrukor? No. Should you ever use these Orc medals on Grishnok? No. Some do have still their own unique ones, like Ugluk, who isn't that great. Well, his items are only good for him anyways. Lertz, who isn't that great. His items are only good for him anyways. Seeing a trend here. Like, the ones who have their own items are not good. The ones who share items with another character are pretty good. Tier 3. This is the one I know the least about, because they've seen the least amount of use, not only from me, but from the rest of the characters in my faction as well. Kirun, the only one I have experience with. I think Kirun is insane. He has like 3 or 4 different chances to stun the enemy. Lord of the Sand is 1. Sandstorm, here's another stun. He has Quicksand over here, another stun. And then Tribal Tactics for a chance to cause evil men to attack twice on top of all this. So 3 chances to stun. This one is active every single round. He also gets, you can put this as a 1-point wonder. Enemy ranged units can only deal minimum damage. Hey, why not? Really, really good against the Dwarven Axe Throwers. Very mediocre against essentially every other good unit, because they have a damage range of like 3%, 5%. Anything else notable on him? Not really. Not really. Neither one of these heals are especially strong. This is only active on round 3. It recovers a very small amount of HP. Same with Sand Soldier. Affects 1 unit, recovers an even smaller amount of HP. I don't even know why this is a skill. This might as well not exist. Frontline Rescue can be interesting if you have 3 different melee units, but that isn't a very popular setup. Maybe, I guess, he's like the one commander that could make it work. Now, question, are there 3 melee evil men units? I don't know the answer to that question. Let's look. Not there. So the evil men are all in eastern quarters. So they have the halberdiers, the dragoons, which yes, I guess are melee, and then the corsairs. So you could run all 3 of these in with Kirun and get a decent bonus that way, a decent heal that way. But he's mostly there for crowd control, and damn does he have a lot of crowd control. The rest, Witch King, I believe, is mostly used for his bonus with Fell Beasts late game. Thing is, with Fell Beasts, there are essentially no good armies that don't have ranged units, right? Because their ranged units are actually good. The Elven Archers absolutely annihilate Fell Beasts. This is pretty nice for damage, for defense reduction. I keep making those up. And then he also gets just a regular damage reduction for the enemy units as well. But Ringwraith, like all of these characters, all of these Nazgul type characters have this trait, and it's not very good. The only good thing about it is the stun in Nazgul Screech. Lord of the Nazgul, very mediocre, right? Additional burn damage on his attacks, sure. defense reduction, percent reduction, not very good when he already has a flat reduction. Urukai damage reduction, 30% damage dealt, along with an HP bonus, so Black Captain's pretty good. And then Convener, very, very good. So Witch King, his bottom set here, very strong. His Respect 3, mediocre. Respect 5, like the side ones are pretty good, but the middle with Felbeast bonus is pretty bad because Felbeasts are not useful in this game. Undying, he's similar. Well, let's just go over it. I'm not really gonna say like he's similar to anything. Undead Commander, avoiding all physical damage from the first hit sustained, 60% chance at max rank. Makes him good, but not great because avoidance exists for other characters. Damage received from ranged units up to 28% reduction. Decent. Decent. Especially when paired with a damage penalty to all enemy units. But the thing is, you have to know that you're going up against ranged units, right? Because even the good side, like you can definitely have armies that are all melee. The good faction loves their mounted melee units. Loves their mounted melee units. Rank 3, he gets Ring Wraith, Respect 3. And Respect 5, he gets Second Wind, which heals, but then prevents future recovery. This enemy units cannot recover HP is supposed to prevent it for, I believe, the entire fight. But this isn't working at all right now. It has a lot of potential to be good, but it's broken. Scaling damage for melee units, 5%. Decent. Speed reduction, pretty useless. So overall, I think the Undying is fine. Undead Commander is good. This is bad, as it always is, except for a 1.1 Druid Nazgul Screech. Second Wind is okay, would be really good if it actually worked on enemy units. Fanaticism, 5% per damage. Like, again, it's scaling throughout the fight, so it's not as good as it could be. Any sort of damage bonus at the start of the fight would be better than this skill. And then he has Undertaker for AoE normal attacks that feel very out of place. So I don't think Undying is all that good. I want to choose Sauron. Man, I wish Sauron was better than he is. He has, like, his Deceiver title is honestly really good. This looks like a small number, but it scales with focus. And it scales very well with focus. So yes, this is 12% more damage, essentially. But it scales to be much better than that. This is a great skill. Damage against enemies who are inflicting madness, good. 10% chance of inflicting madness each round for the first 2 rounds, good. This is 70% chance. Enemies receive additional focus damage. A little bit of a combo damage dealer / heal in this skill. This, I wouldn't take Overload. Damage bonus, or a little bit of damage, but also causes the enemy to deal more damage. Not sure why you would ever take that. This is, like, this whole Lord of Gifts section is pretty bad. So I would not use Lord of Gifts at all. The Deceiver's good. The enemy, like, just not good enough. I'm sorry. Like, he's Mouth of Sauron, but worse. Like, this whole section is Mouth of Sauron, but worse. I don't know. Just, it's very disappointing. Very disappointing. So, Deceiver's good. The enemy and its abilities are good if you're going against strong commanders, but everything else here is just, it's just not good enough. It's just not good enough. Go away. Saruman is probably the one that I know the least about. So he deals a little bit of each type of damage. So he does some focus damage, some burn damage, and some poison damage. which is good, but this triggers every 3 rounds, which makes it less good, and the targets are random, which is also not good. He has some focus damage. This is a very small amount of damage that I'll get. It's just not good. Not good. Focus Discharge is good, but it's on a 5-round cooldown. It only activates on round 6. It activates once the whole fight. Doesn't seem good to me. 36% damage. It's just not there. It's just not there. Volunteer Scryer is it's just bizarre. Like, there's a chance of him hitting your own units of many colors because this triggers before this does. Yes, it causes allied units to take less damage. Yes, that damage reduction scales off of focus, but why? Just why? Melee damage scaling, unremarkable. Wild Magic on a 3-round cooldown activates twice per battle. Like, at least this is decent scaling. Like, this at least becomes like almost 400% focus damage, so it does some good damage, but like it's just not that amazing. In general, like, skills that deal focus damage are much less impressive than you would think they are. Voice of Saruman, enemy targets, chance of succumbing to madness. It's freaking 30% chance, dude. And yes, it's every single round, but, like, the thing that this game unfortunately does not seem to realize is that most people are not going to run 3 different units in their armies. They're going to run 1 or 2. So, like, this bottom effective affects all enemy units at max rank. It just doesn't do anything. It just doesn't do anything. Astonish, totally out of place. 50% chance to stun the enemy commander for 1 round every 3 rounds. Like, why? And then 30% damage increase, a terrible Uruk-hai heal, and Orcs and Uruk-hai receive less damage. So, just on paper, Saruman seems really bad. And I feel bad for saying that, but he seems really bad. Last but not least, Black Serpent. Horn of Harad. Really, really, really good. This is the best damage buff that the evil faction has access to. At the start of the fight, 60% increase in damage dealt that decreases over 4 rounds. So nice. So nice. This is the kind of damage buff that you want, not 5% per round. High Alert massively decreases the amount of focus burn poison damage they receive. Situational, but if you know it's going to be useful, this is huge. It's 50% at max rank. Haven, just some nice physical damage reduction. I'm not sure you would really use this, but it affects all of your allied units. So it does have an advantage over some of the other physical damage reduction skills. Fire Dancer causes him to deal burn damage at max rank and makes him deal additional burn damage. Powder Keg and Arson, we've seen both of those before. Powder Keg might be okay when combined with Alchemists or another unit that deals burn damage, but it's only active on rounds 3, 6, and 9, and I don't think that makes them very good. Makes it very good. Haradrim, more might. Evil men get a damage reduction. Damage received reduction. Tribal Tactics, we've been over this one. It's awesome. Has no synergy with Alchemists, unfortunately, because those are Uruks. But if you pair him with, like, I don't know, the Halberdiers, I guess, could be pretty good. Evil Alliance, more damage reduction. And then his Respect level 5 causes Mumakil to be really awesome all of a sudden. You can pair them with Orcs, like the Taunt Orcs, and Mumakil won't hit them. Do I think this is good? Sure, sure. But the abilities after it are both awful. Resupply is bad. Wild Magic, it's the same one that Sauron gets. I don't think is very good either. I could be wrong about this one. I could be wrong. Like, if Wild Magic causes Muma kills to hit everybody with this additional focus damage, that could be pretty solid. But I'm not sure if it works that way. This is so niche. This is so niche. Are you going to have access to Muma kill late game? If you have Black Serpent at Respect level 5, the answer to that question is probably yes. Is it something you're going to be able to take full advantage of? I don't know about that one. But if you can, I think you would want to use Lord of Mimikil along with Wild Magic, Horn of Harad, and then maybe you could stick some evil men in there and give them like some damage reduction and make him work that way. I think he is good, but what you use him for is a little up in the air because he has a lot of good skills, and then this one is just kind of like out of left field. So this video went on for much longer than I thought it would. It's been 50 minutes, but I hope you've enjoyed this review. If you have any additional information or things that I missed or overlooked, etc., please feel free to post them down in the comments. I will do my best to respond to everybody who goes to the effort of leaving a comment. So thanks again for watching, and I will see you in the next video.